If you're married, you might want to stay with me for this particular discussion. Part of the law on marriages could be set for a bit of an overhaul. The General Laws Amendment Bill, soon to be tabled in Parliament, could bring about a lot of changes. One of those is a proposal that would empower the courts to redistribute assets in a divorce or a death, and this is the important part, and overrule any parts of a marriage contract. That is, whether or not it is an ante or prenuptial, whether there is accrual or no accrual. So if you're married, you're thinking about getting married, I don't want to upset the apple cart, but you might want to listen to this conversation. The idea is to protect the rights of a spouse who may be left with nothing after a divorce or a death. It's very complicated. We'll try and condense it. Even I don't quite understand exactly how this works. Thankfully, we have very clever people like Malusi Kulu, Managing Director at Donda Attorneys, who's woken up early to talk to me about this. Malusi, wonderful to have you with us on ENCA. I'm not sure if my summation, Malusi, makes sense. It sounds like, regardless of what marriage contract you signed, it seems that these new changes will overrule that, will override all of that. Is that a fair assessment?
President Holm, thank you for having me. I believe you've captured it properly. That's what is going to happen now. This will be tabled at the Parliament, and then the President will then sign it into law, where if you are married in a marriage that is a contract without accrual, it does not necessarily mean that at the end of the marriage, whether it's ends by divorce or by death, the contract will mean that the one who if you have assets, the one who has more assets will just simply go with those assets. The one spouse who's vulnerable will also have a redistribution order where he or she can also access some of the assets from the one who has more.
I want to try and get into the nuts and bolts of this. I know it's very complicated, this marriage law and the proposals, Malusi. I'll try and get into the nuts and bolts in a moment. I just want to know why. Do you have a view or an opinion as to why this is now coming up? What's happened? What's changed?
Okay. Let me try and look at the Matrimonial Property Act. It's a 1984 Act. The introduction of that act was to make sure that it can introduce what we call an accrual system. You will be married and your contract will be without accrual or with accrual. Now what that means is that during the substance of your marriage, once you divorce or there's death, it will be separated, and that the assets will be separated at the end. But before, if you were married before that and one dies, you will not be able to get access of the assets. So that is why they are saying if you are married before 1984, you now can get access to the restitution order, which you couldn't get. But also, if you are married after 1984, you couldn't get access of the restitution of assets because there's an accrual system. So the law is simply saying now, though there are those who are married, but they cannot get access to restitution. But it doesn't mean, Gareth, that you will get 50%. It means that your contribution will be recognized, whether it's non-financial or whether you are looking after the kids or whether you are simply a homemaker. So the law will say at the end of the marriage, whether it's divorce or the two apply. But because she couldn't, because of the law, she then went to constitutional court because she wanted to apply the rights to equality because she was not the same as the people who are married after 1984. So then that case law changed the law and said it's not fair for those who are married out of common of property, but their husband or their wives die and then they can't access any asset because those who are divorcing, they can get access. So it's an issue of equality here, Gareth. And the second point is, on the second case, it was decided that if you are married after the enactment of the Matrimonial Property Act, you can't have a restitution order when your marriage is divorced, because you are married out of property,
Yeah.
without a quarrel. Then that was also changed. They say even though you are married after 1984 and it's without a quarrel, you can also be able to access some of the assets, but not 50%. It's looked at what did you assist the other spouse who's maybe wealthier than you in terms of the estate. So it's not 50%, it's just to make it fair, so that you are not left without any assets if you are the financially weaker spouse, inverted commas. It's all about the rights to equality and non-discrimination.
Yeah, it's not about the right to equal distribution within a marriage. It's the right to what has been contributed to and ascertainable during the marriage contract, which is what you're referring to. Malusi, very quickly, as I say goodbye, I don't want people to start panicking and running off to their local lawyer and calling Malusi Kulu for marriage advice. Now, or is this up now, or is this still going to go through parliamentary process? I just don't want anybody to panic just yet. What should people be doing? Last question.
No, I believe the impact of the case that I spoke about in 2023, they've given the parliament, time to resolve this and change the laws, especially Section 7, subsection 3 of the Divorce Act that talks about redistribution. So the changes will be retrospective, which means it's important to look at your contract and go and consult your attorneys, both of you as spouses or you as alone, because what it essentially says, Gareth, is that at the end of the marriage, if you are married in a marriage that is out of community without a quarrel, there will be redistribution to ensure that there's fairness, but not to say it will be 50%, 50-50, but they will look at the contribution of the other spouse who is, inverted commas, vulnerable, so that there can be some distribution that will be fair, so that the other party is not left destitute or without any assets. So there will be a distribution order according to this bill, and the Constitutional Court case has there's fairness, but not to say it will be 50%, 50-50, but they will look at the contribution of the other spouse who is, inverted commas, vulnerable, so that there can be some distribution that will be fair, so that the other party is not left destitute or without any assets. So there will be a distribution order according to this bill, and the Constitutional Court case has ensured that this will be implemented, so that the Constitution or the rights in the Constitution can be applied, Gareth.
Okay, well, I was trying to not let anyone panic. Maybe it is worth a phone call to your attorney. If it's not Malusi Kulu, of course, maybe your attorney that signed and you put together your marriage contract with them, because it might change, especially out of accrual within the marriage. That seems to be the big one that might be affected by this. If I heard Malusi correctly, he's the expert, not me. I'm still trying to make sense of this, but I think I've got it now. Malusi Kulu, thank you very much.